Hi, it's Richard here from Intelligence Advisor IT Consulting with another in our series of learning steps talking about entities, relationships, and the functions that exist around these two concepts. In this step on our learning journey, we're going to be talking about how to create mirror image instances, essentially cloning an instance of one entity into another entity. More prosaically, we could say we're going to use the InferInstanceFor function, since that's precisely what that function does. This is the project we've been using in the other parts of this learning journey. The only thing that's changed since last time is I have added one new attribute in the purchased item. Remember that purchased item represents the products purchased by our customers in our supermarket. So I've now added a brand so that we can identify which products belong to which brand. And the goal is to create mirror image instances of certain products that correspond to certain brands. So I'm going to now go over into the entity model and create a new entity, and I'm going to call this entity the shop's own branded product. So I'm going to extract mirror image instances of certain products that are using the shop's own brand. I will make sure that I update the text of the relationship so that it's nice and natural, the shop's own branded products. And of course, if I want to use InferInstanceFor to create mirror image instances, I need to make sure that I have a relationship between the target, which is the shop's own branded product, and the source, which is the purchased items. So I'll go ahead and create a new relationship between those two, and I'm going to call it the relationship between the own brand products and the purchased items. So that's my new relationship. Now that the relationship is created, I'll switch over to the Rules tab and I will create a new Word document. And this Word document will be where I will show you the InferInstanceFor rule. I'll open up the Word document and we'll create a very simple rule. We will use the Rule Assistant because it's always easier to use the Rule Assistant, and we'll select InferInstanceFor. The entity that we want to create is this new shop's own branded product entity, and the relationship is the relationship that I just created. So we have a single line rule with no conditions. Now that we've created our rule, we'll close Word for a moment, and we'll notice that there's an error on the Data tab. Because this is an inferred associative entity, the cardinality of the relationship must be very specific. It must be a many to one. And I'll launch the debugger. So now I'll go ahead and start the debugger. I'll switch to the Data tab because at the moment I haven't really updated the user interface to take account of these changes. And we'll go ahead and look at the purchased items. I'll create a purchased item. As soon as you see me creating a purchased item, you can see that I already have a shop's own branded product here. So I'm going to go ahead and say the purchased item is, let's say, cat food. The unit price is 1.5, quantity is 3, and the brand is Yummy Cat Food. So now, as you can see, I have fully populated my purchased item. I have the promotional message on the till receipt, which is from last week's episode. And now we have our shop's own branded product, which has been created as well. But you'll notice that the shop's own branded product, well, it tells me it's related to cat food. But of course, the attributes of this new entity are not populated. Just because I create a mirror image of an instance doesn't mean that magically those attributes are going to be populated. So I'm going to go back to my Oracle Policy Modeler, go to my rules and open up the rule. And we're going to create a second rule, which shows you the use of the for function, which is almost always used whenever you see an InferInstanceFor. So let's go across here and say and this is where I should use the rule assistant again to save time. So I need to look for the shop's own branded product, which is the identifier of my new entity, equals for, and then we'll choose the relationship that I created, and we'll go and get the purchased item and close the bracket. So in this case, I'm using the relationship to essentially follow the path of the relationship back to the source item and grab the attribute value and place it in the attribute called the shop's own branded product. What does that mean for our debugger? Well, it means if we return to the data tab and look at shop's own branded products, we can now see that we have populated the attribute. So at least we now know that the mirror image is in fact called cat food. And we could use the same principle again and again. In fact, I'm going to get lazy and just copy this and paste it and populate other attributes. And this is where I need to be careful to make sure that I use either my eyes or I use the rule assistant to make sure I don't make any spelling mistakes. So it's the purchased item unit price, the purchased item quantity. So there's the purchased item unit price, and we'll do the purchased item, we'll do the quantity. As you can see, the rules are almost identical. It's simply quoting a different attribute that I'm interested in. And what else have we got? The purchase item quantity, unit price, and the purchased item final price. Let's do that one. And the purchase item final price. This is the beauty of the for function. We can go and grab all these attributes and their values and use them to populate our newly created mirror image instance. So now when I buy cat food in the purchased item and I look at the shop's own brand products, I see not just the relationship, but I see all of the different attributes that came from cat food. So far, so good. But our stated goal was to create only mirror image instances of products that had a certain brand. So I'm going to go right back to the InferInstanceFor and add an if and say, well, the purchased item, I'll get there in the end. Let's use the rule assistant so I don't make quite so many. The purchased item's brand equals super value. Let's say that that's the brand of my supermarket. So I'll add that and validate it. And now I will refresh the debugger to take advantage of that. So right now you'll see that in my cat food purchased item, there are no mirror image instances in the shop's own branded products. It's only when I select the shop's own brand, SuperValue, that I will see the corresponding mirror image instance. So I now have a filtered mechanism to only copy across those purchased items that are of my shop's own brand. So in summary, we've seen InferInstanceFor, and we've seen the use of the function for to grab values of the source entity instance to populate the attribute values in the target entity instance. That wraps it up for this time. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again soon.